All right, this is the first video in a series of videos about jazz for the 8th grade exploring music class at Central Middle School in Eden Prairie. I hope you're interested. The jazz unit is going to contain lots of information about the history of our country, the history of everything from music to race relationships to historical and political viewpoints. As much as we can, we're going to stay focused on listening to music and watching a series of videos. It's going to be a little bit tricky because the videos that I have embedded in the presentation are copyrighted on YouTube, so I'm going to have to attach them separately. We're going to see how this works. But if you want the full presentation and what you see behind you here, you should be able to find that on my Schoology page as well if you want to just follow along and actually watch the videos embedded in the presentation. That should be pretty easy. But for today, we're going to skip through those. So jazz, let's get into it. So we'll start with the language, the lingo. For example, you teenagers have some pretty sick, lit, slay, fire, 100, real, bless up, cringe, fleek, iconic, I can't even, dying, dead, stop. You've got such great language. Everything back to jelly and totes and kill 'em, bruh, bet. Real talk, YOLO swag. These are all parts of youth culture, hashtags and everything. That's the real talk of teenage life. And back in the days of jazz, that was the same thing. It always has permeated the different genres of music. So, for example, this guy is E40, and he's single-handedly responsible for most of the rap and hip-hop language underground. You may not even know it, but he's kind of the one inventing all the stuff that you guys say. Kind of crazy. Well, back in the jazz era in the 1850s, 1860s, all the way through, early 1900s, people were saying things like dig it, baby. If something was bad, that meant good. So if that was one bad cat, that meant it was a really good guy, really fun person. Right on. Cool, man. So some of these words, we still say cool now and again. Hippie too. So if you need to be hip to it, that's kind of the language. So just be aware that there's some fun stuff going on here in the 1860s with music. The backdrop, where we are socially and politically, is that Abraham Lincoln is president. And he is noted for the Emancipation Proclamation, which was a letter that he wrote. I would like you to watch these two videos. I will skip them here because they're copyrighted, but if you are watching this presentation separately, you should be able to click on them and watch them. And if you are in my class, you should be able to click on the links. So there's two links here about Abraham Lincoln and the Emancipation Proclamation. Then the Underground Railroad is another kind of feature of this time. It was not actually underground. It's not actually a railroad. I mean, I suppose there were a few tunnels dug to keep former slaves and escaped slaves free from being captured by vigilantes and people, lynch mobs and such like that. Harriet Tubman was one of the people who helped people get to the north. There's a whole video on Harriet Tubman that I'm going to skip. I've also attached that. People were trying to get above the Mason-Dixon line from the south to the north. That didn't mean complete safety, but it was a lot safer in terms of the laws. This kind of was part of the Civil War as things bubbled up between the North and the South. The South wanted the slaves to count. Sorry, I'm going to get this wrong now. Let me go back. The South said, we want our slaves to count for us. So if you've got, 50 slaves, that would count toward your voting rights. The North said, well, we'd like to get rid of that. We want to get rid of slavery. There were hidden reasons, racist reasons behind a lot of this stuff on both parts, North and South. So then there were these compromises that 3/5 of our slaves would only count as a vote. Kind of strange. And then the North said, well, if that's true, that's your property. 3/5 of our property can count, so then we can count our cattle. So every cow was being counted 3/5. It got way out of hand and started the Civil War. And that's where we are going to start this story in America. There are 12 genres of jazz. The first one is ragtime, and that's where the story will start in our next video. All right, so that's what you need to know out of this first video. We'll see you for the next one.